Hey people, welcome back to another episode of the 8 Days of HalfKocked. It is day 6 of 8. We're almost at the end. Hi Sage, the cat just walked on in. Today I'd like to talk about the movies of 2017 that I didn't like that everyone else did. It felt like this year I was the asshole. I was the contrarian, as Liam likes to say. Because a lot of movies that everybody loved, critics and audience alike, would come out, and I'd either think they were kind of okay, mediocre, or just flat out bad. And I kept butting heads with people this year. I'm sure it wasn't easy for my co-stars to be around me for some of these reviews. If you have a similar opinion about any of the movies that are going to be on this list, I'm kind of here to say, look, you're not wrong, you're not an asshole, you're not stupid for seeing something or not seeing something that everybody else did. Don't be an asshole about your opinion, but respect it, celebrate it, and cultivate it. Figure out why you think the way that you think. Before we go any further, take a look at the score on the left, now the one on the right. Add those, divide them by 2, we're going to go lowest to highest. By the end, we're going to see the movie that I disagree with both critics and audiences on the most. So, without any further ado, here go the movies of 2017 I disliked that everyone else loved. Number 10. Blade Runner 2049 was a movie I was excited to see based on the trailers alone. Caveat, I've never seen the original Blade Runner. Leave your "you're an uncultured swine" comments down below. But I love the director, Denis Villeneuve. He made Prisoners and Arrival, 2 movies that I just adore. And what a cast. Ryan Gosling, Harrison Ford, Ana de Armas, you got Robin Wright in there, Sylvia Hex, I'm sorry. This feels like a sizzle reel for a Blade Runner TV series. There are a lot of ideas, there are a lot of directions where this could go, but as a movie, as this kind of like one singular package, it doesn't really fit. The person I wish we would have followed was Sylvia Hoeks. I'm sorry again. This android does seem to have a lot of affection and emotion for her own kind, but she's also working for Jared Leto's creepy capitalist. So I'm sitting there wondering half the time, like, is she going to have a change of heart? Is she going to kill the supposed baby that she's been sent to hunt down? Will she raise it? Will she defend it? But then we don't have a lot of time with her. We have a lot of time with Gosling, who seems to just be this kind of average Joe character that the audience can put themselves in as we travel around the world. One of the things I wish they would have pushed on more is maybe the AI. I loved Ana de Armas' character because if we're trying to kind of break down what makes us human, is it the fact that we're made out of these DNA strands, these cells, this organic material? We've got the androids that are made, I believe, from metal or partly robotic. And so with the AI, it's now, is being human about your conscience? Is it about your brain matter, your soul, so to speak? I think we're bringing the conversation of artificial intelligence away from a corporeal sense and more into like what makes intelligence work. And I think that's a fascinating story to go by, but the movie kind of sidesteps it for its noir, which I didn't think was that impactful. I'm pretty sure if you've seen the original and you have that emotional baggage carried in, it'll affect you more. But it just didn't do it for me. It's pretty mediocre. Pretty and mediocre, not both. Number 9. I think in the review, I actually gave it a marginal pass, but then I saw it again with Brittany and some of her friends, and I just found myself bored to tears. The Revenant. It's 3 hours long, and then when I watch it again, because I know everything that's going on, the movie kind of speeds up for me. For it was the opposite. I knew it was happening, and it just drug along. I mean, after that haunted house scene in the second act, the movie just kind of grinds to a halt. I really felt like they kind of blew their wad early. I thought some of the scares were better when it wasn't very CGI heavy. Ben being chased by the headless kid, or the giant Pennywise that comes out of the projector, I thought it just looked goofy. I mean, for a movie of $30 million, fine, but in a genre where less is more, it kind of would have helped maybe to show just a tad more restraint. This idea of this town that has ignored its problems so long that it physically doesn't see them. I thought that would be a lot of fun, but I think the bathroom scene is one where my brain kind of goes like, okay, are we going metaphorical or literal? Because sometimes it feels like it's literal, sometimes it feels like it's metaphorical, and it doesn't quite click from a visual standpoint. And if you're just telling the story based on moving images, you need those moving images to make sense. It's not that I think it's a bad movie, but it did just enough to push me over the edge into me not really being able to recommend it. Number 8. Alright, grab your pitchforks, grab your torches, it's time to do this.
This is the worst Marvel movie ever made!
Yeah, I still think this is true. Guardians 2 feels like a complete retread of the original, where these characters are just flattened out or given just bad character traits. I never thought that I'd be able to hate Drax, but some of the shit that he's saying to Mantis and some of the jokes that he's given don't come off as a guy who doesn't understand any better. It comes off blunt and gross. I think Yondu and Rocket are the only two characters that still hold on to that Guardians of the Galaxy energy and liveliness while still evolving the characters. Star-Lord just kind of devolves into just like this whiny asshole, and his subplot with Gamora, anytime they're arguing, it's Attack of the Clones dialogue. It is bad. The way the movie goes along, it's so loud, bright, and dumb that it kind of undercuts some of the emotional moments that are trying to work out. The line where he's about to like take Ego out and he says something along the lines of, "You killed my mom and you wrecked my Walkman." You had to bring the Walkman back, did you? You had to show the Walkman 4 or 5 fucking times in the entire movie like it's Kong Skull Island, and you had to make this big deal because remember, the Walkman was in the first one, 70s soundtrack. No, it completely undercut that emotional level, and I feel like that's what the movie did. It kind of took these nice balance that Guardians had with these strong characters and emotions and the fun pop culture and just pulled at both extremes. But when you pull at both extremes, the threads holding those two nicely are starting to fray. And for me, they frayed beyond repair. I was incredibly bored in this, super disappointed. I'll still hold by it. This is the worst Marvel movie ever made. So do I get my check from Warner Brothers now? Number 7. John Wick Chapter 2 is an example of a movie that, in theory, gave me what I wanted. And what I wanted from the sequel was, badass action and world building. And I did get that, but, and this is the problem with some critical thought too, just because we say we want something doesn't mean we want bad versions of what we want. I like that we get world building in John Wick 2. I just think the world building is complicated. It drags the movie down. I found that this movie didn't have a lot of action, not nearly as much as the first one, and it kind of ground the movie to a halt. What I realized was that I wanted world building, but I wanted the world building to stay simple in the way that John Wick was simple, because that's what I thought was so fresh. Hopefully John Wick 3 kind of keeps it simple. Hopefully. I don't really know if I have faith in that. Well, I guess we'll see. Number 6. War for the Planet of the Apes is a movie that I am, for one, impressed by. 20th Century Fox basically said, oh, we're going to show our movie a month early, no embargoes, because we believe in it that much. That should be commended. A movie like this, a movie that does take a psychological turn, and it's titled War for the Planet of the Apes, and the battle is anticlimactic at the end, which can be a criticism of it, but I don't think it's the point of the movie. Kind of like it, there were just enough things that bothered me to slightly knock me off the bandwagon. Primarily, I don't get this villain, and I don't really get what the stakes are. Woody Harrelson is this guy who is scared of the monkey virus, so his plan is to get a bunch of monkeys to be slave laborers and surround himself with those monkeys. Why does the military care about Woody Harrelson anyway? from what I can tell, Woody Harrelson is just there to build a wall and to kind of defend himself against these intruders. But other than that, what is Woody Harrelson doing? Is he trying to like weed out the weak, so to speak? Is he? I mean, I think we're on the same side, especially if Woody Harrelson is distracted with kind of gathering all the apes together in one place. Couldn't the military just then like kill all the monkeys at that point? Do we need to subjugate the monkeys to slave labor? I think the movie kind of gets lost in its sort of slavery, Holocaust, prison escape metaphors to not really make some of this make sense. Maybe I'm just not a big fan of where the movie goes psychologically, and maybe I'm kind of nitpicking on that, but yeah, War for the Planet of the Apes didn't really do it for me. Number 5. I am a massive Spider-Man fan. Ever since the first movie came out, I've been inundated in comics, shirts, memorabilia. I love Spider-Man as a character because he so encapsulates what it's like to be an ordinary person with an extraordinary life. He has a lot of problems that he has to deal with, but every day he kind of overcomes them or tries to overcome them in order to do the greater good, which is what I think heroes should do, or heroes should really strive for. So in theory, Spider-Man Homecoming should really do it for me. The emotional crux of the movie, I believe, is about Spider-Man getting over his own ego to better serve the people that he's trying to protect or defend. But where the movie kind of gets lost, for me, is in all the dressing. I don't like that Peter Parker is suddenly given this brand new suit with a bunch of crazy powers. Because what I think it does is kind of undercut how smart and resourceful the guy is. I mean, he made his own web shooters. I would think that maybe Tony Stark gives him a better version of what he's got, but not to this degree. I don't want Spider-Man spending his time trying to figure out different settings on weapons and balloons that are already there for him. It would be fun to kind of see Spider-Man figure out how to use his maybe brand new web shooters to make like a parachute or to try and do a bolo or kind of stuff like that. That would be more fun and bigger ingenuity. I don't really understand the Vulture as a villain, because even if Tony is the guy that screwed everything up and is cleaning it up, that doesn't make you the best candidate. You're random average Joe holding superpowered weapons in their hands. Yeah, I don't believe that's something we should be spread out. And so your whole Bernie bro rhetoric with something that honestly should not be in the hands of the average populace, I don't believe is a smart idea. Homecoming is one of those movies that had a lot of different ideas, none of which I think really landed. I guess it was a average try, better luck next time situation. Number 4. I love every single one of Edgar Wright's movies. From the Cornetto trilogy to the Scott Pilgrim movie. Not only do I think those are good movies, I think they're great. Objectively great. Like pinnacles of their genres type movies. What I think people really loved about Baby Driver, most people, is that it's one of Edgar Wright's more accessible movies. The British humor is not really there. It's kind of a straightforward plot, this sort of like heist movie with a kid who listens to music all the time. And the kid wants to get out of crime and go run away with the girl that he loves. Very simple, kind of 50s-esque plot, which I think works in the movie's favor if you want to make this kind of like music video type film. But what I found was that unlike Edgar Wright's other movies, which had fantastic characters, this one just kind of felt bland. I wasn't really drawn in by Ansel Elgort nor Lily James. I actually feel Lily James was heavily underutilized here. Edgar Wright, one of the best visionary directors we have. I didn't really think these car chases were that impressive. That initial car chase in Kingsman 2 this year, I thought had way more energy than anything in this film. You take a look at the gunfight in Free Fire and compare that with the tequila fight here, it just doesn't compare. Compared to his other work, compared to what I expect from Edgar Wright, for me, this just didn't land at all. So, again, bored, kind of annoyed. It's fine. Some of the music is okay, but for me, it really didn't nail it. Number 3. It felt like a movie that was trying to balance out the story about a guy not fitting in with his family and traditional values and trying to make his own way in the world versus the story about this relationship that has this incredible medical hardship. And the way the movie approaches these two stories happening at the same time, the guy kind of seems like the whole movie's about him, when I don't think this situation should be. Given that I've seen some of these things happen in my life with Brittany, that's where a lot of the anger came from. Watching the movie again, I don't think it's a movie with bad intentions. I just think it has a bad direction. I really don't think that this movie should be so focused on Kumail, because Kumail is an asshole. And even though he is a character who's trying to redeem himself, by the time we get to the ending, when Emily does wake up from the coma and they're starting to kind of confront and rekindle the relationship, I felt like that part was done too soon. If you really wanted to balance these two stories out, would have had Emily wake up from the coma maybe halfway through the movie, and then the rest of the movie be about her and her side of this relationship and trying to, rekindle her life, and then maybe be her relationship. And maybe that balance would have been better served. Number 2! The Disaster Artist is a movie that I don't like because I still feel like Tommy Wiseau is the butt of the joke at the end of the movie, which I don't think is what James Franco is going for. If you went full-on documentary with it about Tommy Wiseau, the guy, and who this dude really was, and the way, kind of like letting him go unfiltered, it would have kind of maybe humanized him even more. Especially when something like Jim and Andy came out this year, which I think does what the Disaster Artist is trying to do better. Offer somebody's point of view on another person's events, why they're inspired, even if they're crazy or insane. The sort of thing that attracts you to them, the sort of like lifeblood that, with any other person, property, we wouldn't pay as much attention. But what was that spark of madness that this person had that is so enthralling and keeps everybody looking for it? Jim and Andy, I think, nailed that better, because at the end of the day, Andy Kaufman isn't just a joke. When you take comedians seriously, when you take the Joker seriously, that's more interesting than just, pointing a finger at a guy, making a funny voice, and going, oh, ho, ho, isn't he silly? Number 1! Coco, a movie that has like a 97% from critics and a 96% from audiences. So I'm like right in that 3 or 4%, that dangerous, I'm not quite at Armin White or Rex Reed territory, but I'm getting fucking close. Similar to Moana, I think the aesthetic weighs over the substance in the movie. This main kid, even though the performer and the actor who plays this kid is great, I think he's actually really, really good. The character himself is kind of just like, okay, I've seen this before. This person that doesn't get along with their family and wants to explore the unknown and sort of discover something about themselves. I've seen it in Tangled. I've seen it in the aforementioned Moana, Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast. It's a very Disney Renaissance type plot. And by now, I'm kind of sick of these plots, and I kind of want something else. Like a movie like Up or Inside Out, I think the emotion that what they're trying to build here is strong. Taking out of context the scene like the flashback with Coco and Hector singing Remember Me, or even Miguel singing to Coco at the end of the movie, that is strong. But when you layer it in with this story and the way this adventure goes, for Inside Out, I thought the adventure was kind of boring. Here, just kind of felt like hodgepodge stitched together. Giant spoiler alert here. Why is Hector not gone to the final death when Coco dies? Miguel asks him, like, look, if I go back because I know you and I put up your photo, does that count? And he goes, no. The people that knew me when I was alive, those are the only people that I have to worry about. And so if Coco is the last person to know Hector when he's alive, he shouldn't be, you know, dancing and holding and hugging her at the end. Hector should be gone. It was a big point in the movie that they had to stress that, but they don't follow it later on. Which is where I'm thinking, like, okay, the emotion is nice. The visual of seeing this family reunited is cool. All you had to do is take out that scene beforehand, and, you know, everything would have been, I think, more acceptable or better. It would be better world building. And compared to movies like Book of Life, like especially Kubo and the Two Strings, I just don't think this movie landed perfect tens on all fronts. So, those were the top 10 movies of 2017 that I didn't like, that everyone else did. If you have movies that you didn't like, that you think everybody else did, or everybody else really did love them and you feel like you're in the minority that I didn't mention here, wow, that's a long sentence. Leave those movies down below. Let me know if you want to see the flip side of this, because I'll totally, you know, bite the bullet and say that I liked movies that a lot of other people hated. But, you know, let me know if you want to see movies that I liked that everybody else didn't like list, just so, you know, you can laugh at my dumbass poor taste. The next 2 days, we're going to wrap them up here. The worst and best movies of 2017. Get hyped, get excited. We're going to finally put this year to bed and just going to close out this wonderful little project that I've entrusted upon myself. Yay. If you like this video, click the like button, subscribe next to it, click the bell icon to be notified when new videos show up. And we've also got Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram if you want to follow our bullshit on there. Thank you all very, very much for watching. I hope this doesn't, you know, completely lead to a comment section that's burned and ravaged to the ground, but we'll see. Y'all take care, and see you around.